Big Food is about to be pissed. Today, the FDA decided to wake up from their slumber and actually do their job. They decided to redefine what healthy food actually means. Before we get into the article itself, the cherry on top of this entire situation is the fact that they did it right as those corporate executives were going on their Christmas break. This is hilarious. Let's take a look into what this new definition is. A fresh take on what healthy means on food packages. To help consumers build nutritious diets, the FDA updated the nutritional requirements of food must meet to use the claim healthy on the package. And without even going into the article itself, there's one problem that really stands out to me. The word healthy was in quotations twice, and we haven't even gotten to the body of the paragraph. I truly feel that the word healthy should not be up for interpretation. This should be a standardized definition that all of us should understand. There are only two reasons why there's quotations around the word healthy. The first one being for liability purposes, but the second and the most deceiving of them all is for loophole purposes. But before I go off on another tangent, let's see what is actually changing. Updating the healthy definition on food packaging. The last time healthy was defined on packaging was in the 1990s. Think about that for a second. At a bare minimum, it has been over 30 plus years since we have revisited the word healthy that should have been standardized since the beginning of time. This should not be up for interpretation. And spoiler alert, we may have won the battle with this particular change, but we are far from winning the war. You'll see what I mean once we actually get into the changes and what they still consider as healthy. Based on the nutrition science and federal dietary guidelines at that time, the definition was solely focused on individual nutrients. For example, it included limits for saturated fat, total fat, cholesterol, and sodium, and required a certain amount of beneficial nutrients like certain vitamins, minerals, fiber, and protein. This last part of the paragraph is really fascinating. I'll tell you why. Since the 1990s, where they have defined healthy foods as either low fat or low cholesterol, think about the huge influx of products that are plaguing our grocery store. The problem with these products is very simple. When you have a product that has a lot of fat in it and you decide to take it out of the equation, a few things happen. The first thing you start noticing is that, hey, this product tastes really awful because fat is flavor. But you run into a conundrum. If I take out the fat, I'm taking out the flavor. But I also want to be considered healthy. So what do? That's where food scientists come into the equation. And if you look on the back of any of these low-fat products, you start seeing a trend. The lower the fat, the higher the amount of ingredients used in order to mask that horrible taste of low fat. It's a very common misconception that eating high-fat foods lead to weight gain. If I eat a lot of fat, I'm going to gain a lot of fat. Unfortunately, it does not work that way. Actually, on the contrary, eating high-fat foods lead to high satiation, which means you won't be hungry as often as you are right now. And on top of that, in order for our body to be fully optimized, we need a very healthy, hearty, fatty diet. Why? We need a lot of fat in order for our fat-soluble vitamins. We need a lot of fat for our membranes. We need a lot of fat for our hormones, and the list continues. And the last thing I'll say about this particular sentence is where it says, required a certain amount of beneficial nutrients like certain vitamins and minerals. The second I read that, my body teleported to the cereal aisle of a grocery store. Every one of those ultra-processed foods that are called cereals have fortification of synthetic vitamins and minerals. And now things are starting to make sense. All of them have some sort of healthy claim, and in order to meet that particular definition, they had to add in a bunch of unnecessary things that have so little of bioavailability. To be consistent with the latest nutrition science and federal dietary guidelines, the updated definition of healthy requires a food must contain a certain amount of food groups like fruits, vegetables, grains, protein foods, or dairy. A food cannot contain too much saturated fat, sodium, or added sugars. And that is what I said earlier when I said, spoiler alert, we won the battle, but not the war. The first part of this definition is a little confusing. On one hand, of course, single ingredient whole foods is healthy. On the other hand, a food must contain a certain amount. What is the amount? Is it 10%? Is it 90%? Are these ultra processed foods found in the middle aisles of the grocery store going to be now made with actual whole ingredients instead of titanium dioxide and TBHQ? We need some more elaboration. But the second bullet point, it sounds like an instant win. We're actually looking into the amount of added sugars, specifically refined table sugar. We're looking into the refined amount of sodium, which, by the way, is not the same as unrefined sodium. But the one thing I will say, this obsession with saturated fat has got to stop. The literature is there. Saturated fat is not the problem. It's the added sugars that we just started talking about. How the healthy claim works. Placing a healthy claim on a food package is voluntary. If manufacturers choose to do it, their products must have the nutrient content required by the healthy definition. Manufacturers who choose to use the healthy claim can use the new criteria starting on February 25th, 2025. Here are some examples of what qualifies to use the healthy claim under the updated definition. Nuts and seeds, olive oils, higher fat fish like salmon, and eggs, finally we all come to a conclusion that eggs are good, would qualify as healthy because of their nutrient profile. They didn't qualify under the previous definition, which is pure insanity, but we already talked about that. Here are some examples of what no longer qualifies to use the healthy claim under the updated definition: fortified white bread, highly sweetened yogurt, and highly sweetened cereal. Going back to my previous comment on where the common sense is, think about this. Somehow, fortified white bread, which is pure sugar, and we can talk about that in a different video, was considered healthy? Bread is the first thing everyone needs to eliminate when they're trying to lose weight, when they're trying to fix their metabolism. Are you kidding me? Like I mentioned before, we have finally won the battle, but we are very, very far from winning the war. In my true professional opinion, this is definitely a step in the right direction. Getting those healthy claims off of the most ultra-processed foods you can find in the grocery store is definitely a huge win. But there's one big problem that I'm seeing with this change. Using cereal as an example, put yourself in the shoes of Kellogg's. You now are facing the chance of losing the healthy claim symbol that is on your box. What is the incentive of actually going forward and getting that symbol back? Despite me thinking their cereal is poisonous and treasonous against the American people, if you really think about it, for them to get the healthy claim symbol back, they would have to reinvest millions of dollars to reformulate their cereal. In my opinion, that's what they should do, and that's what they should have done in order to be in the market in the first place. But now, who cares? In my opinion, this is how it should have been done. The FDA should have put their foot down and simply say, listen, if you want to sell your products in our American grocery stores, this right here is the new definition and the new standard. If you cannot meet that standard, don't worry, we won't say no, but you need to understand that your product is going to be in a far off side of the grocery store, and it's going to have every warning label available that our counterparts in Europe and Asia do when they import our products. By making this new definition the new standard in order to sell your products in the grocery store, I can tell you this, the food industry would be revolutionized. But we all know the truth. The second anyone brings up this idea, the lobbyists are there, the interest groups, the donations are taken away, and unfortunately, this will never come about. But we can hope. And I sure hope I can count on you on subscribing to my channel and liking this video if you enjoyed the latest episode of The Latest Bite. Thank you so much for checking in until the very end, and I hope to see you on the next one. Take care.